I wanted to make a correction from last week. There was a question on microblading. I answered on microneedling. These are two different things. So microneedling is what I had spoken about last week. It's basically to encourage blood flow into certain parts of the head to cause growth. So if sometimes people have patches in their beards, or sometimes people will start developing patches in their head, what they'll do is they'll take these very small needles, and it'll be on a roller, and what you do is you roll it, and it encourages blood flow into that place to cause hair to grow. This is jais. This is completely reasonable, completely halal. That's fine. Microblading is a type of tattooing. It's a type of tattooing, but it's a long-term type of tattoo. So somebody had asked about this. I believe the microblading lasts anywhere between 6 to 8 months. So the difference that you will find in the hukum and the ruling on this is when you do a change to yourself, what is considered a long-term change? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He prevents and He prohibits the taghyir in changing, how long can that entail, and what does that entail? A number of scholars, for example, have allowed Botox, right? So you inject the Botox, it relaxes the skin, and the effect of that Botox, it can last anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending on the injection and how strong it is and how the person reacts and deals to it. Microblading lasts anywhere between 6 to 8 months. So for some, they feel that this is too long. A lot of them will use it, say, okay, how long does the effect need to last on something? And they said if it's less than a hawl, so if it's 1 lunar year, that is one way that they gauge it. And the reason they say that is because this is considered a long enough period of time for a person to hold on to wealth, and then there's accountability to that. So if you want to talk about changes, just like the change in wealth is affected in that year, the same way the effect on the changes in the body are affected in that way. For some scholars, they say no, out of the safe side, because this is not similar to wealth. It's important for us to take the bodily changes into account, and this is too long. So some of them set a shorter timeline of this 3 to 6 months, which is why you have more scholars allowing Botox and less allowing the microblading, and Allah knows best. But at the end of the day, it's something that that should be avoided. Like if a woman wears a hijab and is outside and does wudu, is she able to just wipe over her scarf when it gets to wiping her head? So it depends on the type of scarf. Some scarves are very tight, right? So the ones that fit tightly over the face and the neck and are difficult to remove. In the Hanbali madhab, it is permissible for her to wipe over her scarf. Or otherwise, in the other madhab, because like in the Hanafi and the Shafi madhab specifically, she only needs to wipe over a part of her head. What she would do is, because even in their madhab, it is permissible for her to expose her forearms to make wudu, so she would wipe her arms. Then she could take her hands, put them under the khimar, and just wipe over part of her hair. She does not would need to wipe over the entirety of it. And like I said, in the Hanbali madhab, it is permissible for her to wipe over her khimar if it is tight. But if it's like one of those loose ones that kind of like sit, and she can put her hands underneath, fakaffi, that she can just put her hands and just wipe over a part of her hair, and that will fulfill the requirement for wudu. Is it true that it's valid, Maliki opinion, to pray with the hands on the side, and what is the dalil? So over here, the question on how to pray, there are different ways to pray in the different madhahib. And in the Maliki madhab, there are two opinions. So the stronger opinion in the madhab is to do sadal, which is actually praying with your hands to your side. And within the madhab, it is also sunnah to do qabd, yani where you actually hold your hands together. The dalil for that is what is the position for standing in the prayer. So when an individual stands during his prayer, how should he stand in that prayer? And someone might say, okay, well, what is the dalil for that? When we stand up from ruku'ah, for most of us, how do we stand? We do sadal, right? We leave our hands to the side. Is that a qiyam or no? Yes, it is a qiyam. Khalas, that's their dalil. So they say qiyam is qiyam. If you stand this way, then this is the way to stand, and this is why it's permissible to do sadal. Yajuz, like I don't anybody who follows this opinion, I don't see a problem with it. I personally do qabd, but and I believe majority of people do qabd. And like I said, you have 3 out of the 4 madhahib that do qabd, yani holding of the hands, and even within the madhab itself, within the Maliki madhab itself, there is khilaf, even though the more predominant opinion is sadal, which is leaving the hands on the side. Are all athari salafi? It depends on how you define these terms. So like athari was a classical term that was used for a polemic school. So basically what you have is just like the madhahib fiqhiyah in how we understand sharia. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the Quran and the Sunnah, why do we have different rulings? Because there are different ways to understand those rulings. And this is where the madhahib fiqhiyya came from. They said, okay, well, how do I understand, for example, the example we just took, right? On where do you place your hands in salah? Why is there a difference of opinion? Because they looked at the adillah, they looked at the proofs, and they said, based on these proofs, this is how an individual would pray, this is how an individual would make wudu, these are the things that you're allowed to eat, these are the things that you're not allowed to eat, and you have all of these differences of opinion within those schools, even though the Quran and the Sunnah is the same. طيب. So a question then comes is like, all right, well, that's with fiqhi things. How do I understand qadr? How do I understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's that? How do I understand His essence? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about certain characteristics, how do I understand these things? Now, these are the madhahib aqdiyah. Now, there are different ways to understand that. The three Sunni schools are the Hanbali school, or the Athari school, as they like to call it, the Ash'ari school, and the Maturidi school. These are the three major schools on how to understand these issues. So issues of qadr, issues of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's essence, issues of nubuwat. What is the difference between a Nabi and a Rusul? Right? So all of these ghaibi issues and all of these ghaibi discussions you will find amongst these schools. Are they important? For most people, no, they're not. Like, very honestly, it's not important. What is important for me as a Muslim? If I want to know my religion, I want to know my deen, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he summarizes for us very beautifully in one hadith, and this is famously known as the Hadith Jibreel. Those are the things I need to believe in. I need to believe in the 5 pillars of Islam. I need to believe in the 6 pillars of Iman. I need to believe in the muharramat, all of those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited and are agreed upon. All of us need to agree that lying is haram. All of us need to agree that zina is haram. All of us need to agree that drinking alcohol is haram and eating khinzir is haram. Right? All of these things, this is Islam. This is Islam. How I am supposed to understand those things, this is not what is obligated on us as Muslims. I am supposed to believe in one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am supposed to believe that He is worthy of being worshipped. I am supposed to believe that Allah commanded us with 5 daily prayers. I am supposed to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to believe in the angels, and that there are previous books, and that there are previous messengers. That's it. That's Islam. Well, how do you understand this? This, I'm not obligated at this point. This is not my obligation. How do I understand this? The mechanics of something? Yeah, if someone said to me, well, how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send Adam to the earth? I'm obligated to believe that He sent him. How did He send him? There's no obligation there. Because the mechanics of understanding how to do things, this is not the obligation of the Muslim. And we only find very specific, unique examples of this how. And one example we have is from Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Right? He says, Arini kayfa tuhyi al-mawta. Show me how you bring life to death. Right? This is one example of that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He challenges him. And He says what? Awalam tu'min. He's like, what, do you not believe? And he says, no, I just want to yatma'in qalbi. I just want to bring tranquility to my heart. Meaning that the how is not a condition for the belief. It's not a condition for belief. That it happens, it is. I have to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings life to the death. That's it. Right? How is He going to bring our ashes together and pull our bones up and then bring all the flesh back together and layer the skin like for all of mankind? And we don't need to believe in these things. It's not necessary on how these things happen. It is necessary that I do believe in them. That's what's important. So again, the Hanbali, Ash'ari, and Maturidi, this is very easy and clearly defined. The problem is that sometimes people use the word Salafi. This is a very charged word. I would need to understand, what do you mean by Salafi? If you say that I want to understand according to the means of the way of the Salaf, well, guess who were the first people to say that? The Ash'ari school. They say, وَقَالَ بَعْضُ السَّلَف, right? They would say that the Salaf said this and the Salaf said that. So what do you mean by it? And if an individual means by Salafi, according to what my handful of scholars believe today, then this is a problem, right? Because you are now limiting this definition to what you understand it to be. But if you mean, should we follow the Prophet ﷺ? I agree. Should we follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the book of Allah? I agree. Should we follow the companions? I agree. Should we follow the tabi'een, atba' tabi'een? I agree, 100%. And not just that, you will not find any group of Muslims, past, present, or future, who say that, no, well, you know what, we shouldn't follow those people. These are all people that we are supposed to follow. These are people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to follow. These are people who An-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam athna alayhim. He praised all of them. So again, this is a very charged term, and people who usually have this question have a very specific meaning to it. So if you would like to have this discussion, I have office hours. My door is open. I'm welcome and I'm open to discuss this issue with anyone and everyone. فأهلا وسهلا فيكم. And we're out of time. والله أعلم وصلى الله على خير خلق نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.